I now call this special call open meeting of Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. I will note that all board members are present. Director Hayes is participating virtually. And with that, may I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Klein-Jerome.
I move that the district implement a mandatory mask mandate for students, staff, and all others when within district buildings. The parameters of such mandate are to be determined by district administration, taking into consideration relevant guidance from the CDC and prioritizing the safety of students and staff. Any change to this mask mandate requires board action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just push it, it'll go on.
Director Snyder seconded. We will now go into discussion. But first, we have Mickey Schultz here, who, I said it right, an attorney at Lane and Waterman. The floor is yours.
I'm here to answer any questions any board member has with regard to mask mandate, Iowa law, or the state of any current litigation regarding the mask mandate.
Can you give us some background on why we're here?
Yeah, so there was a lawsuit that was brought just a couple of weeks ago in the Southern District of Iowa. It was brought in Des Moines against 10 school districts, including Davenport. They were throughout the state of Iowa. And a temporary restraining order hearing was held last Friday with regard to the Iowa law that prohibits school districts from putting in place mask mandates. The judge took that under consideration on last Friday, and on Monday, I believe it was Monday, he entered an injunction, several-page injunction, enjoining the state of Iowa and the Department of Education from enforcing the Iowa law with prohibiting mask mandates within the school districts.
Thank you. I'll call on board members for questions. First, I do want to say that the survey was closed a little bit late at 3:39, and we did have 3,586 responses. So we greatly appreciate everyone participating in that did and gave their opinions. It helps us out. Now, with saying that, I'm going to open this up for discussions, questions for the attorney. Whoever wants to go for it. Director Beck.
Could you please post a copy of the resolution that Director Klein-Jerome just read? Because it wasn't under the board docs
Pass it down.
for all of us to see.
We don't have a copy of the motion. I think everybody should have a copy.
Yeah. Thank you. In the meantime, I do have a question.
Yep.
Okay. Could you explain a little bit about what legal liability the district could potentially be in if they do decide or do not decide to implement a mask requirement?
That's a very loaded question. So there's a lot of
Based on the TRO
Yep,
that was
based on the TRO. So the temporary restraining order, the order that was entered just this week, speaks very broadly to the risks to students by not having a mask mandate or mask rules within the schools. By not doing a mask mandate, there's some risk that the people that are already involved in the litigation against Davenport schools and the other schools would go further in the litigation and sue the district for not protecting those students with disabilities. So there is that risk. On the other side, also, even without this injunction, there's some risk of litigation from individuals with disabilities or others not being protected at school from exposure to COVID and then becoming sick from that, or not being able to attend school at all because of recommendations from physicians.
Is that all the questions you had? Director Poston.
This restraining order could be overturned in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is that correct?
It could happen anytime. The governor at least has said that she's going to appeal it. I haven't seen an appeal yet. That may happen after there's a next stage, which is usually the preliminary injunction stage, probably going to happen within a month or so. And then there's always appeal rights, which would go to the Eighth Circuit, and the Eighth Circuit could definitely stay the injunction, absolutely. Or the judge could absolutely, at the preliminary injunction stage, change his mind and not enter an injunction. Right now, we're at what we call a temporary restraining order stage.
Did you have any other questions, Director Poston?
Well, as far as the potential for litigation or lawsuit, I want the public to be aware of that we probably have between 25 to 30 lawsuits or litigations against us going back a number of years. Now, insurance covers part of that, but we have a $25,000 deductible. So pretty much anytime we have litigation come against us, it's costing us $25,000. So that it's not unheard of that we've had this brought before us before as far as any litigation.
Director Potts, you had a question?
How might it affect the potential for someone with disabilities to sue the district if we parsed the mandate to just elementary schools because they do not have access to vaccine, and our secondary schools where students have had access to vaccine for a lengthy period of time and allowed parents to determine if students needed to wear masks or not?
There's always that possibility. However, within your school district, at this point, there's no collection of data, to my knowledge, that shows what the percentage is of children aged 12 to probably 18 or 19, maybe 20, that are actually vaccinated. So there's still children with disabilities within those middle schools and high schools, and exposure to individuals in those schools that have not been vaccinated. You know, when you look at the statistics, and you can believe them or not believe them, if you read them on the state of Iowa, I think the percentage of 12 and above that have been vaccinated is somewhere in the 30 to 40% range.
If a litigant with disabilities has the potential for suit because of COVID, then what's to stop them from suing when flu season arrives, or requiring us to have mask mandates during flu season, or if we have an outbreak of a serious cold infestation? That, I mean, is there no limit to this?
Well, in theory, there's no limit. But at this point, the CDC has never, to my knowledge, other than maybe in the Spanish flu world, which was 100 years ago, to my knowledge, they have not in my lifetime ever had a recommendation for mask wearing generally by the public because of flu. So in theory, could there be a request from individuals with disabilities for mask wearing during flu season if in the future there's some flu that's wildly contagious and running rampant through schools and running risks of death at the same percentage that something like COVID is? Of course there is. But at this point, there's never been those kinds of recommendations from any of the governmental agencies, to my knowledge. I can't say never. I'm only as old as as I am, but I don't recall any.
Did you have any other questions, Director Potts?
No.
Director Hayes, did you have any questions?
No, I didn't.
Director Snyder?
I do have a question. It's regarding the motion. The last sentence that says, any change to this mask mandate requires board action. If this temporary restraining order is reversed and it goes back to where that law is in place that does not allow us to mandate masks, that sort of trumps any board action. So I don't know if I'm comfortable the way that the motion is written, because if it becomes illegal to mandate masks, it doesn't take a board vote to lift that. I mean, the board doesn't vote if it's going to violate the law or not. I think that last sentence should be striked from the motion.
One suggestion I would have is you could just say by board action or any change in the law. You could just add that as a caveat.
Okay.
Something, I don't remember the exact phrase, but I think the intent of the motion, as I understood it, was that they didn't want the administration or whoever was passed, spoke on the motion, didn't want the administration to do away with the mask mandate without further board action if the law doesn't change.
Mr. President,
Director Snyder?
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
Okay.
I would like to, after the last sentence where it says, any change to this mask mandate requires board action, I would like to put after that, or a change in law, or however we want to word that, but to say require board action or a change in the law.
I would say unless there's been a change in the law, now that you've read it a little bit more to me.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll second that motion.
As long as someone wrote that down and has that. I didn't get a chance to write that down. There's been a motion and a second to amend the original motion. Is there any discussion on that amendment? I'm going to call for the vote on the amendment to the original motion, and then we will go back to that discussion. Director Snyder made the motion.
Yes.
Do you want me to read the way I have it phrased?
Yes, please.
Any change to this mask mandate requires board action unless there is a change in the law.
Yes.
And then who seconded that? Director Beck? All right, I'm going to call for the vote on the amendment to the original motion. Director Snyder?
Yes, sir.
Director Beck?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Poston?
No.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Klein Jerome?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries on the amendment. Now we'll go back to the original discussion with
Mr. President?
Director Potts.
Mr. President, I would like to amend the motion. I'd like to insert after the word within in the second sentence, the word elementary.
Second.
Give me 1 second. I'm just writing this all down. Brenda, I hope you're keeping awesome notes. Director Potts, would you please read the motion as you would like it amended?
Motion will then read, I move that the district implement a mandatory mask mandate for students, staff, and all others when within elementary district buildings. The parameters of such mandate are to be determined by district administration, taking into consideration relevant guidance from the CDC and prioritizing the safety of students and staff. Any change to this mask mandate requires board action or any change in the law.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that amendment?
Mr. President?
Director Potts?
I'm proposing that because, in my opinion, my feeling is that elementary students have not had the opportunity to be vaccinated, so they are at a higher risk. Our secondary students have had the opportunity to be vaccinated for a long period of time. If parents have chosen vaccination for their children, that's their choice. If they've chosen not to vaccinate their children, that's their choice. I would assume, I would presume, I would hope that those parents who have chosen not to vaccinate are then having their children wear masks. Right now, masks are voluntary in our intermediates and our high schools, and I think that's a choice that the high school students can make and parents can make for their children. Here again, if you've chosen not to be vaccinated, that is, I have no, that's your choice. But then to tell people who have been vaccinated, now you have to wear masks because, someone had exercised their free will, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. And I think I think this is an appropriate middle ground in this conversation and in this discussion.
Thank you, Director Potts. Any other? Director Beck?
The evidence that is out there right now shows that vaccinated people can both carry the Delta variant and transmit it to others, even if they themselves have no symptoms. The virus is much less likely to make it through 2 masks, even less so when 3 feet of distance can be maintained. I don't personally feel like this is about personal freedoms or choice, because in my understanding, personal freedoms really only extend as far as they do not infringe on someone else's personal freedom or health. The kids who are not yet able to be vaccinated, and I would argue it would be pre-K through 6th grade, not just elementary, are often members of families who also have children in 7th through 12th grade. My family is one of those. I have a 7th grader who wears a mask and he's vaccinated, and every day he goes to school, I worry that he's going to bring home COVID to his younger brother. If my 7th graders' classmates are also wearing masks, this is much less likely to happen. So I do not support breaking out the younger students, because to me, this is not going to prevent transmission sufficiently. No system's perfect. We're not going to eliminate COVID in our schools, but we are going to reduce the likelihood of transmission.
Is there any other discussion on the second amendment? Director Snyder?
Yeah, I too can't support this mandate, or not this mandate, but this motion, for the simple fact that we have heard from the attorney that not doing it district-wide still leaves us open to litigation. Right now, we're not on the direct receiving end of that litigation, but not implementing a district-wide mask mandate could put us there. And as board directors, it is our responsibility and our liability to be as fiscally responsible with school funds, AKA tax dollars, as we can. And leaving ourselves open to litigation does not fulfill that liability.
Thank you, Director Snyder. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion on the second amendment to the motion? Seeing none, I will, did you have something?
No, I'm just ready to vote.
Okay. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Director Potts.
Yes?
Director Poston.
Yes.
Director Snyder,
No.
Director Hayes,
No.
Director Klein Jerome,
No.
Director Beck.
No.
My vote is no. Motion fails. Okay, back to the original amended motion. Is there any discussion on it, Director Poston?
Well, it's obvious what direction this is going to go, so I'm going to move on to, if this is going to pass, I've got concerns from principals and staff, teachers, how this is going to be rolled out. If this is going to be rolled out tomorrow or Monday, that's too short a time. It's probably going to take a week. So I think we're putting undue burden on principals and teachers. And then if you're going to really put some teeth into this, then are we going to, because I've had numerous calls from parents that their children are not going to wear masks. So how many students are we going to suspend and hold out of school? Their comments also are they are not going to do 100% learning. So they're sending their kids to school without masks. So it looks to me like we're going to be spending a lot of time policing and not doing what we need to be doing, and that's teaching our kids. So I think we're being totally unfair to our principals and staff. I think it's going to be a nightmare.
Did you have anything else, Director Poston? Is there any other discussion? Director Beck.
We had, first of all, I'm as tired of, as everyone else of wearing a mask. But the only way I'm going to feel comfortable is for our transmission rates to come down substantially. And this is the Delta variant that I'm talking about. Vaccinations were supposed to be our all clear to be able to stop wearing masks, but the Delta variant came along and changed that. So this is highly contagious. It's not like the flu, it's not the common cold, and we have opened ourselves up to litigation if we're not careful about this. And so I want to make sure that we're safe for all of our children, especially those who are the most vulnerable. And so I think the best thing to do is to require masks. However, we have had, this is not necessarily something that has to be a circus. Our children wore masks for most of a year last year. We don't suspend students for not wearing a mask. That is not a suspendable offense. I trust that our children, who did a great job of wearing masks for almost an entire year, will continue to do so. Kids are resilient. Kids follow the rules. It is parents that I'm more concerned about. Kids will follow the rules, and I trust that we have the evidence to show that this is going to work. I understand that people are concerned. I understand that not everybody wants to do this, but this is the easiest way and the best way that we can help protect vulnerable members of our community until everyone is eligible to be vaccinated, everyone of all ages, I should say, and boosters become widely available and we're able to get the transmission rates under control.
Director Poston, or was that, hold on, was that everything you had? Director Poston?
Okay, this is a prime example of trying to learn in school. Director Beck, I'm sitting right next to you, and I caught about every other word as you spoke with your mask on. And again, this goes into the classroom. How do you understand a teacher talking with a mask on? How do you understand the response from the student with a mask on?
Hang on one second. Director Klein Jerome?
I think our constituents out there, we hear from those who think we're going to think like them, or so I have no doubt that you have heard from people that are against it. I also have heard from a lot of educators at all levels and said, this wasn't an issue, you know, for kids in masks. I was at a building last spring and walking down the hall with the administrator. If a kid had his mask down, she just said, hey, mask, and they put it up. There was no argument, there was no hassle. I have teachers who said, this has never been a problem in my classroom. And so you're not going to find 100% people following either side of this.
Hang on. Director Hayes, did you have anything? I don't want to forget about you.
Well, I listened to both sides of the argument, and both points are valid. However, I would think as a community, parents would not want to go back to where we were with the virtual learning. I think whatever we can do to protect our students is what we need to consider. The masks are hard on everyone. You know, even sitting in a mask myself, I have a difficult time, but it's certainly the lesser of the evils when you consider that this variant is out.
Was that all you had, Director Hayes?
That's it. Thank you.
Director Beck.
I'd like to apologize for not speaking closely enough to my microphone. I am in a classroom. I teach college-age students. Some are fresh out of high school, so they're actually pretty close to the students that we have. I teach on the Illinois side of the river. We've been required to wear masks all the way through. I have never had an issue with students wearing or not wearing a mask in a classroom. They are very understanding. And so I trust, again, that I've heard from a lot of people, and the vast majority have said this is not an issue. I trust that our students are able to do this. They've shown us that they can do it in the past. I think they can do it again.
Director Postron.
Superintendent Snakeloff, what is your plans as far as a rollout of this mandate?
First of all, I'd like to recognize both sides of this. It's a very difficult situation, and it does put our buildings in a very difficult spot in such a quick turnaround. So meeting with our administrators today to find a happy median, it's very difficult for those students that are not paying attention to turn on a dime tomorrow morning and have a mandate. So what we would like to recommend is that this would start on Monday, continue to highly encourage tomorrow, but it would allow our parents to have conversations tonight. It would allow our teachers to talk about tomorrow, but the mandate would go in place as soon as Monday, which would give our families time over the weekend. If the board so decides to move forward with the mask mandate, that's what we would recommend. And that would at least give us a little bit of time and give our families time to bring this mask back, have conversations with their students and have conversations inside their classrooms. Dr. Beck?
If this passes, would this apply also to sporting events? I think personally that is a different scenario altogether, and maybe the lawyer can speak to this, but that is not something that's compulsory. And I think given that people can choose or not choose to go to indoor sporting events, that it would not necessarily be appropriate for us to ask people to wear masks to those events.
I would urge the board to consider if we do move to a mask mandate, that our CDC and local health guidelines all say that when you are indoors, the mask mandate is recommended. It's in outdoor areas where it is not. So those are the points to be considered. I would consider, if you do move to a mask mandate, consider CDC and the health departments kind of our safe harbor for guidelines. And so those are things to consider as you move forward with this recommendation. Mrs. Schultz, is there anything that you would like to add to what hold on, she's in. Mrs. Schultz, is there anything else, I'm sorry about that, put you on the spot when you're being consulted with, but is there anything that you would like to add to what we said? Because that's kind of what our health and safety guidelines have said.
Yeah, certainly that's what the CDC says now, and I didn't catch the end of it because I was talking, but as this reads now, it says within the district buildings. So it wouldn't necessarily apply in any outdoor, football or anything else. But currently, as it reads, for students, staff, and all others within district buildings, that would include, I think, extracurricular activities, which would be choir events, band events, which of course there has to be something that's done in band events. You can't, blow a trombone when you're wearing a mask. So if the intent of the board is to make this only during the school day or required and compulsory attendance time, then I think there probably needs to be amendment or giving that deferral to the administration to make that determination.
Director Beck?
So basically, if the intent, and as the temporary restraining order has indicated, if public health guidelines are suggesting that any indoor event require masks, then we should include those indoor extracurricular activities, or is it I don't want to.
I have not looked specifically at the CDC guideline. I know that they have a recommendation for students to wear masks indoors at school. My understanding of the rest of the CDC guidance, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and I can certainly look it up while we're here, is it's recommended for all individuals to wear masks indoors, but pretty much required for people that are unvaccinated, I think is what they say. I don't think they make the recommendation that, that everybody should, or that it's a compulsory thing. I mean, if you walk into Hy-Vee, that's what it says on the door. It's recommended for all, but we want you to wear it if you're not vaccinated, is basically what it says. I haven't looked at that CDC guidance because they keep, over the last 2 months, they've kind of changed what they've said.
I'll look it up right now.
Thank you.
Director Snyder?
Yeah, I understand Director Beck's concerns too with wearing, these for sporting events. But the simple fact of the matter is then we're placing too much on our building administrators, on building staff to determine when do you wear it, when do you not. I think it needs to be cut and dry. We say in district buildings, that includes the Achievement Service Center. Any district building is what it should be. We should follow the CDC guidelines.
Any other discussion? Director Hayes, did you have anything?
I kind of agree with Director Snyder. That would be somewhat of a hardship. So just follow the guideline and go from there.
Thank you. Director, or were you done, Director Hayes?
I was, yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Director Poston?
Superintendent Snakeoff, would this lead to any restrictions as far as parents watching child's activities?
No. So what we would do is in this term, anybody entering our building would be required to wear a mask. Does that answer your question, Dr. Crawford? Thank you.
Director Beck?
I just pulled up the CDC webpage, and currently they say if you've been fully vaccinated, to reduce the risk of being infected with the Delta variant and possibly spreading it to others, wear a mask indoors in public if you are in an area of substantial or high transmission. And it's my understanding that currently Scott County falls under that category. And so given that, and I appreciate Director Snyder's comment about asking people to make decisions, I worry about asking people to police events. I don't want that to become the issue. I want the event to be about the sports. But if the rule is there, I'll have to trust people to follow it. So I would then agree it would have to apply to indoor sporting events, of course, with the exception of the people performing the activities.
Any other discussion on this? Director Kleindrum, do you have anything?
I just would like to point out, I read over 1,000 of the comments that came in this afternoon. And I know this decision is going to make a whole bunch of people not happy, and no matter which way it goes. But the safety of the kids and the science have to be what we are considering.
Thank you. Director Potts, did you have anything else? Director Hayes, did you have anything else?
No, I didn't.
Thank you. I do want to thank Brenda and Director Klein-Jerome because I was not able to access the survey because I was driving all day, and they were kind enough to read out some of that stuff for me, so I greatly appreciate both of you for that. I'll call one final time. Is there any other discussion? And can you read the motion as it was amended, please?
You want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, I can't tell who you're pointing to. It says, I move that the district implement a mandatory mask mandate for students, staff, and all others when within district buildings. The parameters of such mandate are to be determined by district administration, taking into consideration relevant guidance from the CDC in prioritizing the safety of students and staff. Any change to this mask mandate requires board action unless there is a change in the law.
Thank you. I'm making sure I'm doing this right. Director Snyder.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out one thing. There was several comments that talked about other surrounding school districts. They're waiting to see how this plays out because we could put this mandate in place if that's how the vote goes, and on Monday they could withdraw that TRO, and then we're back to where we can't mandate masks. But at least in the meantime, we are taking the responsible steps to help ward this district off from future litigation, and to compare us to other surrounding districts isn't really fair right now because they are not specifically mentioned in this litigation as we are. So we are in a different boat than them. So I wanted to point that out and make that perfectly clear.
Thank you, Director Snyder. One final call. Is there any other discussion before I call for the vote? The original motion was made by Director Klein-Jerome, so I'm going to go that way for the vote. Director Klein-Jerome.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Postian.
No.
Director Potts.
No.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there- Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.